Guys, I don't know how to start this one. UTSA just got it handed to them again by Texas State. Second year in a row. GJ Kinne shows up, outcoaches his mentor, his father figure, Jeff Traylor. The score was close. It was a close game, but when it came to which team was better prepared, played with better effort, made bigger plays, wasn't even close. Bobcats had the Roadrunners numbers. UTSA goes down 36-43 in the I-35 showdown. This is episode 277 of the Alma Audible. We are here to dissect what went wrong. Can UTSA get it fixed? What does the outlook look like? We've got a lot to get into. This is your host, Jared Kalmas, joined as always by my co-host, Adrian Bermudez.
That's a heavy intro.
When I go to edit this podcast, that really long pause and sigh that you took is probably going to get auto-edited out by our software. But maybe I should make sure to keep it. I feel like it's important.
It's an intro that was still settling in, because this is the reality of it. It's been just a little bit over 365 days since this whole thing has started. Last year, Texas State beating UTSA. Here we are, just a year and some change later. It was actually almost exactly 1 year anniversary whenever we lost to them this last Saturday. And it's just the fact of the matter. And I mentioned it on our immediate reaction. I think I need to mention it again. As it stands right now, the Texas State Bobcats are better at football than the UTSA Roadrunners. I don't think that they have a better program than UTSA quite yet, but they are better at playing football than we are right now. This is a cold, hard fact. And it's devastating to UTSA. More importantly, it's unacceptable. It has to be completely unacceptable for Texas State to be better on the field than UTSA. And I know it's probably a very ridiculous barometer to have for realistically, but it does feel that way, that this just cannot happen, Jared. It's one of those things that you could lose every game on the schedule, but you don't lose that one. I mean, it really does feel that way. It really does feel that way. And this is tough whenever the Roadrunners, I think, to a UTSA fan and to a UTSA alum affiliate, are supposed to be a little bit higher of a tier football program, a little bit higher caliber of a football program. And that's based on 11, 12 years of rivalry history where we've had their number. And just like that, Jared, and just a little bit over just a year and some changes, completely flipped on its head. 1 year exactly, we are here, and we're 0-2. We're 0-2 the last 2 years, and it's brutal. It is brutal to lose to Texas State, and it's just unacceptable. It feels unacceptable, Jared.
UTSA built up a gap over 14 seasons of getting ahead of Texas State, right? Building the facilities, getting the recruits, getting the good coach, expanding the coaching staff, getting the NIL together. It's gone. It's gone. Texas State has caught up and surpassed UTSA. The whole, like, UTSA still a better program. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I think on the field, Texas State's better. I think the way they approach the game is a tough matchup for UTSA. But they still have to go out and like win conference championships and stuff, which, you know, they've been a 7-8-win team so far, right? They have a plateau they have to get to that UTSA hasn't been to. But I think for the fans, what you do on the field against each other matters a lot. I don't know if it's quite to the level of an Army-Navy where you can win one game a year and the fans are going to be happy. I don't know if it's at that level, but it's getting there. It's getting close. And I think now that, you know, it's something I told someone the other day. It's like, yeah, like UTSA went 5-0, but Texas State wasn't even trying to be a real program for all of those years, right? It wasn't until recently. Right. It wasn't until recently they started taking themselves seriously, and they have the resources to be highly competitive and very successful. So now they've caught up, right? So now it's a true arms race now, right? So Now the fun really begins, because like you could have looked at last year and be like, well, that was the best Texas State team ever. It was a fluke. UTSA wasn't ready. Texas State wanted more, yada, yada, yada. There is no excuse for this past week, man. Texas State was just better, and they whipped UTSA and they won. And now every single year is going to be a dogfight from here on out. I don't see that changing.
2 years in a row, it feels like a new type of low point for UTSA fan. It's a hard reality to grasp, Jared. UTSA was out, played harder. Texas State played harder than UTSA ultimately, and played just cleaner, right? I think that's the biggest difference. Is UTSA made some mistakes. They let some things get by them, and they did not complete things whenever they needed to. Namely, you get an interception after a safety mistake to open the game on. So you already set yourselves back 2 points in a possession. But then you get this turnover. You're in favorable territory. You have a fantastic completion downfield, and then you fail to punch it in. I mean, that's one of many things. I think that sequence there, it sort of happened for UTSA, just unable to sustain good football for any really long period of time. I mean, UTSA would try so hard to get downfield and score, and Texas State was making it look easy. They were just connecting on things. They were in the sort of motion. They had 4 50-yard plus plays downfield from quarterback Brad Jackson. I mean, just the numbers are ridiculous, but it was just, I think they were just playing at a different speed than we were and clicking a lot cleaner. UTSA did not play as clean as Texas State. Texas State was cleaner on the day, and that's what a one score difference, a one touchdown difference at the end of 4 quarters will ultimately do. The cleaner team will win. And that's what happened. And so, you call it out coached, you call it out schemed, you can call it whatever you want, but I think Texas State played harder. I think I saw them playing harder. And with that, all those other things.
Yep, and it's an inverse of like the golden years of the Traylor era. I think, and I hope we'll get back to the golden era again, but lately it hasn't been. But in that golden era, it's like you always had faith that they were going to pull it out, that they were going to play good, clean football. They were going to smart. They're going to be clutch. They weren't going to be shooken by an environment, shooken by circumstance. Texas State felt bulletproof against UTSA. I mean, they didn't give an inch, right? Even when UTSA would have a big play to turn momentum on their side, to gain a lead, Texas State would strike right back with no fear whatsoever. And with a freshman quarterback playing in front of 45,000 people, it was crazy. I mean, some of those throws that Brad Jackson made, I literally had to go back and watch them 10 or 15 times. So I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way. He's got, a power 4 transfer barreling at him full speed, mere inches away from flattening this guy and, pressure washing him into the turf of the Alamo Dome. And he just stands strong, stands tall, and delivers a perfect strike 50 yards downfield to a guy that wasn't even open when he let go of the ball. What? Like, get out, man. Like, how does that happen, right? It's beyond comprehension. It just blew my mind. It blew my mind. And it used to be that UTSA was the team that had these miracle plays in them. Things have changed, right? And now UTSA had a chance to win. They had the ball with 2 minutes left. Frank Harris wins that game. I'm going to be straight up. Oscar Cardenas wins that game. I'm going to be straight up. Look, Houston Thomas, last play of the game, drops the catch. He had a defensive back covering him, 5'10", 185-pound defensive back. Houston Thomas can't come down with the ball. Number 0 on offense. I'm sorry, dude. Oscar Cardenas catches that ball. He probably turns the field and gets some yardage as well. Things have changed.
Man, that's brutal. I'm 5'10", 185, Jared. I think that those are real.
You think you could tackle?
Those are real stats. I don't think I could hold Houston Thomas downfield. Absolutely not. But I don't think I could be on the field at my dimensions. Period. Yeah.
Texas State played harder. They played harder, right?
Yeah, and they did. They absolutely did. And to your point, Jared, you talking about a freshman quarterback out there. I mean, look, this is and the UTSA of old being able to win that game, sure. And this is a UTSA roster that was intact for so many years, and it just got turned over last season. we thought that this new roster had maybe put it together and figured it out through last season. And now here we are, retooled. We're ready to go. We look pretty flat. Whereas Texas State, they've kind of overhauled year after year what their roster looks like. And they seem to not take any steps back with the level of offensive output that they've been able to create. Right. Whereas,
and, it was
we've had a year and some change of some growing pains.
Reading all the reactions from, I would say, like, kind of more casual observer fans that probably don't keep up with, like, the day-to-day happenings of these two programs. And, like, a lot of the prevailing narrative was like, oh, well, UTSA can't keep their players. They can't keep their coaches, yada, yada, yada. And the opposite is true, right? UTSA's done a great job holding on to the players. They've done a great job holding on to their coaches. It's Texas State that had those problems, right? They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost a lot of their linemen. They lost their top pass catchers. They lost their quarterback, right? Like, it was almost a complete overhaul for them. And they look so composed, so prepared, totally in sync. Totally in sync. And then UTSA brings back the entire offensive coordinator, wide receiver coach. All they lost was a running backs coach, and they probably upgraded at that position as far as coaching talent goes, if we're being honest. And even though they put up 36 points and they had over 500 yards, there were times like it just looked like they had never played football together, right? It was kind of befuddling. And to me, that's coaching, right? Getting your guys ready to play, ready to go, practicing all the right stuff, finding chemistry, that's coaching. And it was a big, noticeable difference between those two offenses on the field on Saturday.
It does feel as though we haven't been able to retool and reload because, we're lacking at depth at a lot of positions.
Yeah.
Quarterback
we're lacking
being
at starters
one of those,
in some positions too.
Right. We're lacking at starters in some positions, especially defensively. And so we've, and yeah. And so this whole retooling and reloading is an issue. We always hear the narrative, especially from Jeff Traylor, that it's all about keeping guys here. We've got to keep guys here. So hard to keep guys here. But I think what's equally as important as keeping guys here is going and getting new guys, right? Not just keeping guys out of the portal, but trying to get guys from the portal that are ready to go and getting a lot of them. And we just, we haven't seen it, but here's a direct competition who had some very important pieces that they had to reposition at, mind you. They seem to have done that. Came to the Alamo Dome and delivered Jeff Traylor's fourth home loss in his tenure. I mean, it's insane. It's insane when you think about it for what the Bobcats came out and did against what you thought was going to be a much better performing UTSA offense. And we can get into defense, but I think, the UTSA offense struggled a lot to make those big plays happen, Jared, outside of Robert Henry's ground game and the fantastic holes he's had to run through again for a second week in a row. The passing game wasn't quite there. Our dominance wasn't quite there.
I don't know what it was. Texas State had to have done something in their coverage that UTSA wasn't prepared for and didn't do a good job of adjusting against either. It was really telling, there's been a lot of discussion about this, that there were a lot of these fade routes. I have a clip on my film breakdown on Patreon where the receiver's like semi-open and they have open grass to the sideline side, and quarterbacks are taught, like, if that space is open, you throw it towards the sideline away from the defender. And in 3 different occurrences, Owen McCallum had that situation. He put the ball where it's supposed to go, and his receivers weren't even looking for the ball where it's supposed to be thrown. So that was really interesting. I don't know if they didn't prepare for like that inside leverage that Texas State played with or what it was, but that was really ugly. And I don't know, like, that could have been on Owen. I don't really know how they teach to run that play at UTSA, but generally speaking, that's the guidance, right? Is if the defender has inside leverage and you throw in a fade route, you throw it to the outside, and the receiver is supposed to make the adjustment and go get it. And you saw Texas State do that play after play after play, right? Like, they're now, granted, that is like an integral part of, I think they call it like their vertical choice offense or whatever. Like, they give the receivers a lot of freedom in the quarterback and the receiver both reading the coverage together to decide where the ball is going to go. But a lot of those, well, not a lot, several of those big plays that they had through the air, if you go back and watch, like the coverage wasn't that bad, but they had so much time to get open and then to make that jump either to the inside or to the outside. And Brad Jackson puts the ball there. It's like, it's not that much you can do if you're a cornerback, right? If the guy's got 6 seconds in the pocket and he's got the arm to get it downfield, they're going to get open.
Well, get open they did, Jared. 4 passes over 50 yards, 247 total yards on those 4 passes altogether for Brad Jackson, who was pretty magnificent on the day, despite a first quarter interception that he threw. Owen McCown, on the other hand, 23 for 43, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kind of what we saw from him the week prior against A&M. Just a little bit here, a little bit there with his throws, not quite threading the needle and giving it to receivers where they need it on a consistent enough basis to really get the first downs and move the chains or get those big plays, pickups that you needed to have, especially whenever you needed them. And you bring up a point, Jared, when you talk about the Hughes Thomas story, he didn't get help sometimes, but he didn't put it in all the right places that he needed to. Again, I think an inconsistent
a B-
passing
performance from Owen, I would say. Like, he made some great plays, was effective with his legs, but just too many plays where he threw the ball a little high, a little low, and it was tough for receivers to catch, or they did catch it, but they couldn't get upfield because they had to, really go out of their catch radius to go pick it up. So, he's not the reason UTSA lost. I think he played well enough to win the game for them. But just not as good as he can be, right? And that's not a very good Texas State defense either. I think they made them look pretty good because the offense was so sloppy. Of course, the conversion attempts were awful. 4 of 18 combined on 3rd and 4th down. 4 of 18. And this is an offense that returns almost all of their production against a pretty bad defense. It just doesn't make any sense.
They can't do it. Yeah. They can't do it. They can't get those yards whenever they need to. And, it goes to just sort of make you wonder who's really going to separate themselves as the dogs here and kind of take control on the field, who's going to take control on the sideline, who's going to take control in the huddle, because there's a general disorganization, I think, is on the field.
What's up with the substitution errors, man? There are so many of those 12 men on the field. They've got guys running back and forth, coming and going from the sideline. They can't tell who's supposed to be in, who's supposed to be out. Obviously, we're going to get to that 4th and 1 play call for UTSA at the goal line, but just listening to radio where Traylor said that was a substitution error, that Robert Henry was supposed to be the running back in. They had a package ready for short yardage situations with Amari and Peterson, so Peterson's out there for that play. It's supposed to be Henry's carry. So they were like, okay, do we burn a timeout here? We let Peterson run with it. They let him run with it. That wasn't really the difference in if that play was successful or not. But just goes to show that they're not prepared.
Yeah. I definitely there's a million examples of that. I mean, how about not having a play that you can call a handoff to Robert Henry for Brandon Tennyson to be able to come in and make whatever Owen McCown's helmet comes off and he has to sit out for one play? Why do you have to burn through multiple timeouts? Why do you have to burn through 2 timeouts on separate occasions because Owen's helmet comes off and you don't have something that you can just quickly run out there and get out there in a second? I think that's kind of jarring when that happens twice in a game. It's like, I mean, it's just one play.
Plays where Owen's helmet came off and they called the timeout to get Tennyson out of there. They were going to let Tennyson run that play, and Texas State's defense made some kind of shift, some kind of alignment adjustment, and Tennyson looks to the sideline and they call timeout. Just a clear lack of faith in the backup quarterback, to me, is what that says. He's not ready to go.
So you didn't know what it was. Yeah.
Again, they're not ready. They've known he's going to be the backup quarterback since Eddie Lee got in the portal. He's not ready. They didn't get him ready.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right, Jared.
Let's talk about the helmet situation. Right. How many times did Owen McCown's helmet come off last season? And here we are again. It popped off 3 times against Texas State. That's two different equipment managers we've gone through now. Where's the problem?
It does seem to be a regular occurrence. I don't even think too many people have considered that. Owen's helmet comes off a lot. It comes off kind of regularly.
Last year, we saw a couple of situations where we got like a really close view of his helmet on the TV broadcast, and the straps were crazy, dude. It was like barely hanging on at all. And like, how does no one take the responsibility? I mean, Owen should fix it himself, right? He's a 2-0 player. He's captain of the offense. He should fix that problem. But how does no one else step up and be like, what are you doing, dude? Tighten your chin strap. You have to come out of the game if it comes off, man. It's crazy to me.
It does need to get tightened. There's no doubt about that. All in all, Jared, we can look here and say one thing. There was 10 minutes left in this ballgame, 10 and a half nearly, when it was all tied up at 36 a pop. I mean, it's that the fourth quarter just started. And then Texas State, on the very next offensive snap after UTSA ties it, hits Brad Jackson to both Sparks on a 65-yard to the house, and that's a ball game. It's 43-36, and it was one of those where it was a perfect example of what had been happening, but you didn't think that we would kind of just go stale the whole rest of. Jeff Traylor talks about Texas State was able to like nullify momentum, the crowd, which is a very interesting dynamic with the Alamo Dome crowd. I think anyone that has been to a lot of UTSA games with a big Alamo Dome crowd, they're used to a certain decibel level, and it didn't seem to quite hit that decibel level when UTSA was trying to have a big third down stopper, made a big play. It just seemed a little bit passive, and it was kind of what was going on the football field. We were getting a little bit passive. But those issues that happened on a regular basis, from not being able to score on 4th and 1 at the goal line, Jared, to then Texas State going on this streak where I think 5 or 6 straight possessions from like the end of the first half and then through the second half, they scored. They scored on a touchdown or a field goal, and it was just relentless. Our defense could not buy a stop. And so that, with, a general just inconsistency from UTSA's offense, this team is very far away. Maybe it doesn't, maybe the reality is we're not as bad. Maybe we just got some horses that aren't being used up to their strengths or playing to their best of their ability quite yet. But the fact of the matter is we're not playing good. And it seems like there's some deeper fabric issues here that I don't know if this roster is able to get away with the way that one of old and Frank Harris's was.
Well, the defense has a double whammy right now, right? Because that secondary it's so thin. It's never really been good, to be honest, right? UTSA's not had a good secondary since Traylor's been here, and they lose 2 of their top cornerbacks before the season starts, right? The one guy was there for spring ball, got in the portal, went to Michigan State, and then the one from Oklahoma State had the heart condition, so he's out for the year. So you're really thin there. And then you also have 0 production at the will linebacker position. Cam Cooper goes down with an injury, but we don't even know if Cooper was going to be any good. We didn't see him at all this year. So when I say 0 production, I literally mean 0 production. There were 0 quarterback pressures from the will linebacker position, which is supposed to be the pass rush specialist on this defense, and that's what this whole defense is predicated upon under Jess Loepp. And that position, it's just a warm body on the field right now. There's nothing going on there. Vic Shaw's not getting the quarterback. Don Munnerlin's not getting the quarterback. Nothing. So when you combine those two things together, it's just a total recipe for disaster. And I think there is some talent in that secondary room, the safety and quarterback both. I think they find a way to get better and make it work. I don't see a solution for the will linebacker problem. I think UTSA recruited really poorly there. I don't think they put enough emphasis on that position in the transfer portal, knowing what they were bringing back. And I don't see it getting fixed this year, to be honest with you. I think they're going to have to change the defense. I think they're going to have to blitz the interior linebackers. Maybe they can move another interior linebacker to play that will position. I don't know. But from what we've seen from Shaw and Munnerlin, I don't see that getting fixed this year.
Jeff Traylor was very blunt, almost scarily transparent whenever he said that essentially they have no answer for the pass rushing woes that they're having. He said himself, he even said himself, we're still trying to figure it out. We've got to create something there. Like there's no answer. No. There's no answer. And he also admitted to having inexperienced defensive backs. We have to get inexperienced defensive backs ready for the moment, for the magic moment. We have to get them ready.
I mean, sort of though. I mean, if you look at the guys that give up the biggest plays, KK Myers been a starter for several years in Nevada. Jimmy Wyrick's, started games for UTSA in the past, got a lot of snaps under his belt. Jamarius Lewis has been a starter in New Mexico. He's played a ton of career snaps. I don't know if I buy the experience excuse for this defense because, look, it doesn't require a lot of expertise and skill and talent to just be in the right place when you're playing cover 3. And, if you look at that 65-yard bomb to Bo Sparks, Jimmy Wyrick bites on, a fake QB keeper play action. Pretty weird. So then he's completely abandoned his whole third of the field. And then you've got KK Meyer and I think it was Tyan Milton that are left to cover 2 deep post routes. And so they're put in a pretty impossible situation. And Tyan Milton at least tries to cover one guy, but he ends up in between both of them and not really covering either. And then KK Meyer is just kind of floating around out there, not covering anybody. That's just bad. And these are not inexperienced guys either. These guys that have played a lot of FBS football. So I'm not buying it. I think the coaches have to get it fixed. I don't think they have their guys ready to play. And I think the accountability starts with them. They recruited these guys. They knew exactly what they're going to have on their roster coming in, right? The cornerback position, I could give them a pass on. They kind of, took some hits there, but the safeties, nah, I'm not buying that one. And at the will linebacker position, they knew Nanya Nawu was coming off of 2 different ACL injuries. Come on. A converted wide receiver is your option. Is that's your answer in the portal. Again, I just think some serious roster construction mistakes were made. And I think it's really glaring right now. And it's really frustrating that the exact stuff that we said in the offseason are going to be the problems are glaring problems right now.
Yeah, it does feel like we're incredibly thin at a lot of positions. You look outside the line of scrimmage and really start to wonder is where is the depth at most areas on both sides of the ball.
And it's weird too. I mean, they went and got these running back transfers that are not seeing the field. They're not contributing. They're definitely taking up scholarships. They're probably taking up a lot of rev share money. Offensive line, they brought in 2 transfers that obviously have been very good. That offensive line is as good as it's ever been. But then they got guys behind them that are not contributing at all, right? So this distribution of scholarships and recruiting focus, I think, was a bit off.
Yeah, I think you're certainly starting to see that play out. We didn't allocate the resources to the positions that needed them most. And not just one off season, but during a couple of recruiting cycles. And, we've talked about the loyalty over liability. Jeff Traylor doesn't seem like a guy who's going to do anything drastic. But I'm curious is, heaven forbid, UTSA continues to struggle. At what point does there start to feel some pressure being applied to make a change? For Jeff Traylor to make a change, maybe it's a coaching staff move, maybe it's a roster move. What does that scenario you think look like for Traylor to maybe feel like he needs to make a change?
Yeah, I don't
know.
Do
you think one's warranted? And do you think one's warranted?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to try not to overreact too much to this game. I think Texas State's pretty good. And they got all the breaks, right? Some luck, some of their own accord of just being a really talented, well-coached team and all that. So it's too early for me to go into this apocalyptic mode. I mean, I think I picked UTSA to win 7 or 8 games, and I feel like that's still 100% on the table for my expectations. Now, I think where things could go awry is I think the conference looks a lot better this year. So I think if they continue to sputter around a little bit, and I think Colorado State's pretty good. They struggled this past week, but I think they're a solid program. So I think they have a tougher road to do what they did last year. of kind of salvage the season and go win a bowl game and have a good narrative to tell. So to me, I think that's what it would take, like either missing a bowl game or losing in a bowl game in an embarrassing fashion or something like that. But I mean, at this point, we kind of know Traylor's MO, right? He likes continuity. He likes to reward his guys internally. So I would be pretty surprised if there's like really massive structural changes. So we'll see. He seems to prefer like more tactical shifts than major strategic ones. As an example, there's all the talk about the slow starts, and they put a big focus on that of like, we're making all these changes, but it didn't seem to really change anything, right? They didn't really make any coaching changes. I don't know if they like made personnel changes or whatever, but it seemed like it was stuff that wasn't drastic enough to really move the needle and make them to be effective in September this year. So I don't know. We'll see how things play out. But week 2 is way too early for me to talk about coordinators getting fired and stuff like that, even though I think UTSA could probably do better. Because look at like the positions that UTSA's brought in outsiders. Interior linebackers look incredible. Running back looks incredible, right? I think UTSA can get a pretty high level of recruit with the amount of money they have to spend. They've shown that they can go poach from other G6 programs, right? So I think when they go outside their comfort zone, right, they can up level. But are you willing to get rid of a guy who's been with you for like 6 years now to make that happen? I think that's tough for Traylor.
It's the question that everybody asks, so I had to ask you. Yeah, I think we have talked about the loyalty over liability thing, but ultimately I think you're right, Jared. It is a hard fought game that UTSA is going to have a lot more of on the schedule, a lot more than they've had in this conference in the past, and even going back to last season where some games were very, very tough for UTSA. It's going to be again one of those where you have to limit the mistakes that you make if you're going to win these ball games, because a lot of them are going to look like this, where it's a lot of points and it's very back and forth. And both teams are going to have a chance ultimately when the fourth quarter rolls around. Who's going to get it done? UTSA, I think, has a ways to go before they can really secure being the team that gets that done. And it's going to be hard to prove that.
With all these concerns that we've talked about and all these shortcomings and stuff like that, you've got to find an edge. And for a lot of teams, special teams is that edge, right? To get that hidden yardage, to push teams back, to flip the field, all that kind of stuff. And right now, UTSA special teams are among the worst in the country. They're 5th worst in PFF. I'm sure there's statistics out there that have them probably even worse than that. But they looked miserable against Texas State, just completely inexcusable. They looked just like they had no direction out there. They're poorly coached, poor effort. So, some of the kickoffs I rewatched 5 or 6 times, and I felt sick to my stomach watching it. I mean, guys were running out of their lanes, just like zero focus on executing the technique. They were just getting blasted and blown up by Texas State blockers. It was frankly embarrassing. UTSA should be ashamed of their performance on special teams. And that's not even getting into the bad snap that led to a safety. And again, this is where I'm going to point the finger at the coaches, because UTSA went in the portal and they got a 2-time all-conference, all-MAC long snapper. And he gets to UTSA, his first snap in the Alamo Dome goes like 10 yards off the mark. I don't think that's a talent issue. I think that guy knows how to snap a football. I think something's happening in practice where these guys aren't getting ready to go. And I think they've got a special teams coordinator that has no experience on his resume coaching special teams. 0. Why?
Loyalty over liability, maybe. I think it's all a really fantastic point. It's something that needs to be considered. And something that I'm really, really surprised about is Jeff Traylor being very transparent when he says miscommunication has happened to us quite a bit. And so through 2 weeks, there's a lot of miscommunication happening on both sides of the football. So much so that Traylor's willing to just go out and say it.
Yeah,
and I think that's what you're saying.
Here's another one, right? We've talked about kind of the pre-snap communication type stuff. So that snap that we're talking about in my film breakdown, I show like you can see where Hatfield has a snap infraction. Like he starts to snap it, and then he realizes he has the wrong snap count or something. So he like kind of hitches a little bit, and it throws him off, and that's why he had the bad snap. And in a radio interview today, Traylor said, Ty Leonard is the guy who's the up blocker, whatever they call him, and he calls out the cadence and all of that. So whoever they had out there in place of Ty Leonard, I guess, didn't make the call right or whatever. But again, you knew for a week that Ty Leonard was questionable. There's no excuse to not have the next guy ready to go. These guys are paid a lot of freaking money to get a multi-million-dollar product on the field and ready to go in front of 45,000 people. And you can't get a snap count right? That's not even high school. That's middle school mistakes, man. It's pathetic.
If that's not the best breakdown you're going to get on what happened on the UTSA safety, I have no idea what is. Holy cow. And so that's the story behind the play from Jared Kalmus, Nostradamus. Wow. Jared, it is unacceptable, especially whenever that's considered, especially whenever the time pass is considered. You have more than enough to prep. Mm-hmm. So these sorts of glaring holes and not being ready whenever it's time.
You're not asking a guy to make 3 reads against a super exotic blitz package or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. And so,
hey, Adrian, I'd be remiss if we didn't take a second here to think back to the call-in voicemail that we played on the last episode. And I can't remember. Was it Joe?
Was that, you talk about the one? You talking about
the one?
He was
both
not
of us
happy.
Both of us were like, Joe's being way too harsh, man. UTSA played tough. It was a good showing against a really good A&M team. We're pumped. We're excited. And Joe was like, no, that's BS, right? You can't come out here and claim these moral victories and say a team has championship fiber or whatever Traylor said when you lost, by 18 points or whatever, right? Come on, get a grip. And he was right, man. He was right. The team that showed up against Texas State was a team that looked like they had a lot of praise thrown at them and didn't actually accomplish all that much. I thought it was very telling.
They didn't look very heated. They came out there a little bit soft, is what you're saying, Jared.
Texas State had the chip on their shoulder.
This is such an excellent bridge to my next point, because Traylor, to me, the last 2 times he's been in a press conference, that's post-game and that's his Monday media day, has really gone out of his way to express his discontent with having such a difficult out-of-conference schedule. He keeps on saying, really good teams. We played some really good teams. They're a really good team. We played some really good teams. And so what? Who cares if they're a really good team? Aren't we a really good team? Shouldn't we be beating really good teams?
What are we striving for here?
If they're a really good team, so we're not supposed to win because they're really good now, or the expectations should be low. What is he trying to say? I get what he's trying to say, that we played some good teams, okay. But it keeps getting echoed to a point where it's as if, hey, put some slack on the leash for me. A&M and State are at a different level. They're not. Especially Texas State is not. Texas State is not. And
that's not really good. They played a great game. I'm not going to be surprised if they're a 7-1 team again. And that's not something that UTSA should be intimidated by any means whatsoever. Well, do you think USF was sitting around in their locker room preseason saying, oh, we got a ranked Boise team. Oh, we've got a ranked Florida team. Oh, we've got a ranked Miami team. No, they wouldn't have worked. And they kicked some ass, man.
Come on. You told me that couldn't have been UTSA upsetting the Aggies in week 1 in the exact same style that it happened to our conference foes on the other side of the Gulf? There's no way. No way. Why should it be the Roadrunners? Why couldn't it be the Roadrunners right here under Jeff Traylor coming off of this? And so that's the reality of it. I think that's the reality of it, Jared, is that we don't look like we're very pissed off about Texas State having our number. And that's a tremendous problem. It's a tremendous problem. Yeah. We should be pissed when we play them.
Well, let's wrap it up with some of the positives from the game. There were quite a few of them, to be honest. I thought the front 7 was great. Very impressed. They were rotating in walk-ons on the defensive line, and they had some rough showings. But overall, they did a great job bottling up that run attack from Texas State, right? If you look back to what the Bobcats did against Eastern Michigan, they really got stymied against UTSA.
Mm-hmm.
Shad Banks is a superstar. He had the interception. He was just all over the field. He had a screen that he sniffed out several times that he was right on Brad Jackson and just couldn't quite bring him down. But he was there. He was a menace for sure. Was really happy with that front seven. And I thought UTSA's offensive line was great, man. I mean, there were times like we said, Texas State got their penetration. And when you have a defense like theirs and that's your goal, you're going to get it, right? But overall, I thought they did an awesome job clearing some running holes for Robert Henry, Will Henderson, both. And Owen McCown was clean, right? He was able to sit back in the pocket and, read the defense and all that. And then there were times where the protection was so good, it allowed him to step up and take off and run. So I was really happy with that offensive line. And I think as they face some defenses that have less talent in that front seven, I think they're really going to feast for sure. So good day for the Big Nasties, I'd say.
Yeah, very good day. Very good day for the Big Nasties, and it shows in the ground game yet again. And that's Robert Henry just continues to be at a different level, completely different monster. 159 yards on the day. But what's really just an unbelievable statistic is having back-to-back games with 75-yard runs. Pretty cool for Robert Henry. And yeah, he's getting a lot of help up front, but he's hitting it hard and he's hitting another gear. And he just really looks fantastic out there. And same with Will Henderson. Will Henderson just really looks good running the ball in the carries that he's gotten, the handful of carries that he's gotten. So, yeah, it deserves its praise for Will Henderson as well.
For sure. Oh, that's probably enough. That's probably enough praise for a rivalry loss. We don't want to gas these guys up too much. They're going to have to work for it and prove it this week against
It's bad, Jared. It's really, really bad. It is what it is. It's horrendous right now. It feels like a newly experienced low point to be 0-2 to Texas State, and to just really feel like they're kicking our butts. And it was just a one possession game, but it doesn't feel like that. The score is not indicative, I think, of how much better Texas State just played.
Yeah, there were a lot of times in the game. UTSA. It feels like we're down by 18 or 20, not 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Starting off with the safety probably has a lot to do with the perception of the score, if I had to guess. But all right, we'll wrap up Texas State. We'll see them again next year. Not looking forward to it, to be honest with you. But before we hit a career break and come back to preview the Incarnate Word Cardinals, I do want to say thank you to some new subscribers we have on Patreon this week. A lot of great content. I thought my film breakdown of the Texas State game was a really good one. Put a lot of hours into breaking that down, just trying to figure out how did this happen. So I hope you guys will sub for $5 a month to go check that out. But yeah, shout out to our new subscribers at the Insider tier, Runner Guy 98, Chewy, and my guy Dave Linhart. Dave, I haven't seen you forever. Hope you're doing well, man, if you're watching. And shout out to Joe Longoria, who joined in the Booster tier as well. We also have Ben Graves upgrade from the Insider tier to the Booster tier, so thank you, Ben. And as always, I want to say thank you to Board of Trustees members. Got to see a few of these folks out in the lots. Shout out to DigiTeek, John Alwell, Gary and Ruben represent the UTSA Burger Tailgate, Ray Redding, Andy Elizada, Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon, and Secret LLC. And big shout out to Ian. He sent us a picture just before we started recording. He framed one of our bandanas from our store and has it hanging in his house. It looks so sick. So cool. Thanks for that, Ian. Shout out to Javan Townsend, president of the DFW chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, Waterman Construction, UTSA Annual Giving, Brandon Padron, UTSA King Bowser, and Runners United, where you can go to www.goutsa.co to support UTSA athletes. All right, guys, we're going to take this commercial break. We'll come back for a quick UIW preview as UTSA gets ready for the Hometown Showdown. All right, guys, we're back to preview UIW Cardinals, a team that had really high expectations coming into the season and has been struggling a little bit out the gate. They've got 2 games under the belt, a really ugly road loss at Nichols where they just got absolutely wrecked, and then a nice little performance against a solid Eastern Washington team at home. They've actually been on a bye week, so they're going to be rested, probably retooled a little bit. probably going to have some new plays in the playbook ready for the Roadrunners as the Cardinals look to make a big splash and maybe spill some blood in the water after UTSA left a lot of emotion out on the field these past 2 weeks for sure.
You got to hope so. But yeah, UIW, definitely not as dominant as you expected them to look this season. Struggled to even put up 200 total yards of offense that game against Nichols.
Man, that's crazy.
And only 6 total points. I think they had a couple field goals throughout the day. But I mean, just stifled, right? Stifled. But look, let's call it what it is, Jared. This has got to be a tune-up game for the UTSA Roadrunners. The UTSA has got to go out there and just play on a different level than UIW. Be together, be tight, run this thing the way that they ought to. And you got to hope that they come out and look levels cleaner than they have the opening 2 weeks. And I think that's what you got to ask from your ones whenever you see them take the field in the first half, first 3 quarters of this game. Is they need to be out there. They need to be clean. They need to be fast. They need to be tight, especially the passing game for Owen McCown. It's gotta happen this week.
Yeah, and you would like to see UTSA just overpower an FCS opponent, but Incarnate Word's not one of those FCS teams that I think you can do that really easily against. They've brought in a lot of talent there. They have a lot of FBS transfers, Power 4 transfers at that. And they've also done a good job of going out and getting guys from the FCS levels that were like all conference players at other schools to come down here to San Antonio, right? So I think that roster is pretty dang good for an FCS one. Comparing them to like Houston Christian last year, I think it's going to be a night and day difference. Or like that Lamar game that UTSA had a few years back. Again, Incarnate Word's just on a different level, right? They're closer to that threshold with FBS when it comes to talent than like a mid-link FCS program. So even though they looked a little shaky on film, from a talent perspective, they got guys that can play. They certainly have guys that can play at UTSA.
Yeah. Yes, it can't be muddling around, Jared. You do particularly have to be tighter. This is something that could give a scare for the Roadrunners going into the second half. Is the last thing you need, right? Is to get into one of those shootouts with UIW, giving you a scare down the stretch. But it's not. It's not impossible to happen. Not against this team.
Yeah, I heard a interview with Coach Traylor today. He said, "Don't be surprised if it comes down to the last possession." Could you imagine UTSA Twitter? Even if you win, 35-30 against UIW. Whew. There's
no excuse for that. There can't be any excuse for that. No way.
Yep.
So who do we got to look out for?
Yep. So Clint Killow, I think is how you say his name. I'm not real sure how to pronounce that.
Killow. Clint Killow.
Killow. Yeah. So he's in his third season as a head coach there. He's a guy that played at UIW. He's got a lot of experience in that program. And unfortunately, some bad news for UTSA fans. He comes from that same system as GJ Kinne, who was the coach at Incarnate Word and built that offense there, right? So all the things that you saw from Tech State where it seemed like they could just get open downfield, at will, that's the same offense you're going to see against Incarnate Word. Are they going to execute it as well and as cleanly and with as explosive of athletes? No. But just from a schematic standpoint, which I think should be the primary concern, here we are again. Right. So it's kind of a cool opportunity for UTSA because it gives them the ability to show improvement week over week in areas where they really lacked last week, right? Is handling that downfield passing attack. But the Cardinals have a guy who's got the arm to get the ball downfield. Richard Torres is a San Antonio product quarterback. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of, it was somewhere in the South Side, I think it was. I can't remember high school. But he went to Nebraska, didn't have a lot of success there, wasn't set up to see the field anytime soon. So he transfers back home for Incarnate Word and pretty much immediately becomes a starter for them. He's 6'6", I think like 215. So he's got a stature for sure. He's going to be the biggest quarterback UTSA sees, maybe all season. I don't know. Definitely so far this year. But for him, the accuracy so far has been off, right? Like UIW has been trying to work a lot of bubble screen, wide receiver smoke screens, stuff like that. to try to get him going and in the flow. And he's just throwing a lot of his balls in the dirt or throwing them off to the side so the guys can't get in motion to catch it. I think he'll clean that stuff up, right? He's been able to hit on some downfield shots. I think he had a 75-yard touchdown last week against EWU. Is that how you pronounce it? EWU?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of syllables. At that point, you might as well just say Eastern Washington, right? It feels but nonetheless, he's a quarterback that is still learning how to compete at the Division I level, right? So reading the coverages, making those touch passes, avoiding the blitz, I think it's all areas that he's still working through. But he's super talented, right? He can throw the ball super far, super far. So he's a threat for sure. But if UTSA's defense is prepared and they can bounce back, I think they can keep this offense contained. But they do have the history of putting a lot of points on the board, right? You know, you go back to the days when Cam Ward was the quarterback there, and then I think Zach Caldeza was last year. I think he's at Kentucky now, if that's right. But they've had some guys back there. They put up a lot of points, and that could come back at any time because it's a good system.
Well, yeah, I mean they're fast. They like to go to the air a lot. They like to go to the air hard. And Richard Torres isn't by himself. He's just throwing the ball. He's got a lot of good targets, and he can throw the ball too. You look at Jalen Walthall. You look at Sheehan James. You look at there's one more. There's one more in that trio.
Jamison Garcia has had a good season for them.
Jamison Garcia, wide receiver. Thank you. But I mean, look, these guys, they can get open downfield. And I think we've spent enough time on this podcast about UTSA secondary woes. But if there's any time you have to be worried about them, yeah, UIW would be one of them.
Yep. They've got some weapons for sure. Walthall is definitely the top guy here, though he's had a little bit of a quiet start to the 2025 season, but he's probably the most talented guy in that room. Shadon James, I think, is their leading receiver. So he's like a triple transfer. He was at Fresno State, then Idaho State, now in Incarnate Word. So he's been really good. They've got two guys in the backfield that have been pretty solid as well. So both of them are fellow FCS transfers. Harlan Dixon comes from Southeastern, where I think he was like all-conference, all-freshman team his freshman year. And Jalen Spears transferred from Nichols, and he was the 2023 Southland Player of the Year. So really natural talent. Interesting story for him to transfer to Incarnate Word and then, travel to Nichols and just get whipped in that first game. He must have got some interesting text messages after that one, I imagine. But two good running backs there for sure. I mean, definitely a step down from Le'Veon Moss and Ruben Owen and Lincoln Perry for sure. But these are guys that can hit a hole and, don't sleep on them. They're talented players that, can play at a lot of places for sure.
Yeah. So again, a fast and high scoring offense. And what I think that will give UTSA some tests. Certainly so.
Yeah. They do have a good receiver as well. Logan Compton's returning all-conference first-team tight end as well. So while the offense is still putting it together, they've got a young quarterback. They're still figuring things out. That defense is pretty locked in, man. They've looked really good. They have yet to allow 300 yards on the season.
Jeez Louise. Yeah, that's pretty nasty, Jared. Where are they the strongest at as far as their defensive units?
Ooh. I don't know if there's a clear weakness here, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And I say that because they retained their defense really well. They lost some guys for sure. I think Devin Grant was a linebacker that UTSA had recruited at one point in time. I think he went to Colorado, came to Incarnate Word, something like that. I don't know. It's hard to keep track of all these guys that transferred a million times. But for the most part, they've been able to keep that defense together pretty well. They have a linebacker, Declan Williams, that's super, super good. Another guy that I think for sure could play for UTSA tomorrow, no problem. He's first-team all-conference linebacker. He's looked great this year from what I've seen from those first two games. So he's definitely the one to watch there. And all of their returning defensive backs have been pretty solid as well. AJ Tisdale, Barry Dillon, Kendrick Stone, all those guys have had great coverage grades on PFF. And I have seen, some clips from their games this year where they've been jumping in front of passes and bat them down. So good test for UTSA's passing attack after struggling a little bit last week against Texas State.
Yeah, there's a lot of defensive depth here. Whenever you start to look at their secondary and their defensive backs, man, they seem to have a lot there that's more or less shut down. When you look at that list, and dude, with against an offensive attack that has been struggling through the air with UTSA's Roadrunners right now, on McCown's passing game just not firing the way that it should be. Another hard matchup. It's another one where it feels like UIW is good where UTSA is not, or is where UTSA has some holes. UIW might be a little bit tighter. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of things here that are going to give us some fits, and that we're gonna need to work through and figure out. But ultimately, does need to be a reset game for these Roadrunners. But yeah, I think with how good the defensive backs have been, it is going to be another one of those where you're going to have to work through and get those passes a lot tighter, a lot more on a needle if you're going to get the completions that you need here.
Yeah, my main concern is just UTSA secondary not allowing guys to run free down the field because, Torres, he's tall, he can see over the defense, he's got the big arm to get it over the top of them. It doesn't matter if they're FCS players or not, if they're left wide open and they've got a quarterback that can get them the ball. It's going to be 6.
Well, you were talking about, Jared, that you didn't think there was much evidence that there was, a speed issue with the way that UTSA's defensive backs have been getting beat on a lot of these open plays, but more so
it exaggerates
the miscommunications, right? Yeah.
The guys were going to get open on a lot of those plays regardless of how fast they were, but because they have the speed, they can turn it into a touchdown. So there were some plays that, like Jacavian Rogers caught up with the guy after he got beat. So you might see some of that against Incarnate Word, right? They hit a big pass play, but UTSA speed allows them to catch up. But if you allow that to happen repeatedly, they're going to move the ball down the field and go score.
Right. Exactly that. So, but you've got to be a little bit tighter in that coverage because it looks like, we've just been having more so mistakes on coverage rather than getting beat on.
Yeah, I think so. I think the approach for UTSA, I think, should really be to test their man coverage this week. UTSA has mostly been playing zone because I think they don't trust the quarterbacks to really lock guys up in man.
Yeah.
I think this is the time where you see, do you have what it takes? Because if you can't press and run with FCS receivers, then you've pretty much confirmed you can't run that all season long. And UTSA is going to be in for a world of hurt. So I think now is the time to see what you got, if you can hang or not. And I think UTSA needs to blitz really aggressively because that will linebacker position does not look like it's going to be able to get to the quarterback this year. And B, because Richard Torres has been really bad against the blitz this year, it's time to go crazy. Cornerback blitz, safety blitz, multiple linebacker blitzes, bring the house, right? Make him show that he can handle that. So far, he's not been able to do so this year. And because you're not getting that pressure from the will, you're going to have to do this every week now. You're going to have to bring a lot of pressure. You're going to have to put the defensive backs in comfortable situations. But hopefully you can get to the quarterback so they're not back there running for 5-6 seconds at a time, and you can actually get to the quarterback and bring them down.
Yeah, it does seem like the zone coverage hasn't been working well, to say the least. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have enough confidence in your guys to play man, but it seems like something's got to give, right? You've got to maybe try out a different approach, one way or another. Yeah, why not? Why not, Jared? You should definitely have the horses against an FCS opponent to be able to run with at a man coverage level. See what they can do. Try something else out. You can't be getting beat with streaking downfield, wide open receivers. Over the last 2 weeks, it's happened a lot. It's happened in and out. Mm-hmm. So that's got to change. That's got to stop one way or another. UIW can't be having those same types of plays. They can't be having multiple 50-yard passes that Brad Jackson experienced last Saturday. I mean, you're lucky to have one of those per week. To have 4 of them in a single game is outrageous. Those types of things have got to be minimized this week against UIW. That's a very pass happy team. Jared, I mean,
what's your score prediction?
Yeah, confidence level going into this. Well, I feel fine. I do think you're going to get a lot of points from the Roadrunners. I think I probably have more concerns about the defense and the offense. I think the offense is something that it's an execution problem that they're not too far away from. Defense, it feels like there's development that needs to occur.
Right.
I don't quite feel that bad about the offense. So
Right. I think the offense could turn around in any week and look great the rest of the season. I don't have a lot of talent concerns on the offense. I think they've got all the pieces there. The defense, I think there's some areas that could improve in 4 to 5 weeks. I think there's some areas that are not going to get fixed. So I share your concern there. I think for this week, though, I think we're going to get like a false sense of comfort from the defensive performance, because I think this Incarnate Word offense is going to be not as clean as and efficient. I think they're going to have a lot of their own mistakes. That's going to make us come away feeling better about the defense, but probably prematurely. So I think UTSA is going to do pretty well here. I think they'll win something like 36-18 or so.
That's not too far off from me. I actually have a 38-21 Roadrunners.
That's a good outcome. I mean, this is a good program. Like I said, they've got a lot of talent. So I'll be pretty happy if it plays out like that. I know most of the time you play an FCS opponent, you want to get that 50-7, that 45-3 kind of score. But I think Incarnate Word is too talented, too proud, too well coached for that to happen. And obviously UTSA has their own issues they're working through right now. So I'll be satisfied with that outcome if that's how it plays out.
Yeah, certainly so. I mean, it's something that you wanna win with enough comfort to know, okay, we're still much better, and some things are working a little bit better. But you got to be realistic with how things have gone for the Roadrunners so far. They're gonna have to clean things up this week. They're gonna have to clean things up a lot. So I don't know. It is kind of interesting in that it's probably the first time we've had an FCS opponent in a very long while in which we felt like we were going to learn a lot about the Roadrunners against. But I think I feel that way this week against UIW. I think I do feel like we're going to learn a lot about the UTSA Roadrunners this week. They need to go out there and have one of those wins that's, 2 sizable possessions, 3 possessions plus. You have to have that. You have to have that. Well, we hope to see everybody back out in the Alamo Dome for a consecutive Saturday. Big thank you to everybody listening, to everyone that subscribes. You do have a incredible bonus episode coming this week, the Alamo Audible Trauma Hotline, which has just been on fire. A voicemail box and an inbox of text messages has been quite literally on fire. Jared tweeted out the phone number. I think it may have still been in gameplay during the fourth quarter, or maybe just right after it. It was pretty early on. It was pretty early on Saturday. We made the announcement that you could vent via voicemail or text message to the Alamo Audible Hotline, and boy, the venting came in, certainly so, and. We got a whole lot of feedback. We appreciate everybody for calling and texting in. That was fantastic. If you guys ever want to call and text in, you always can. The phone line is always open. Jared, hit it with that line one time, my friend.
I'm ready for once. It's 210-660-8259. You can save it in your phone, so you could be 3 micheladas deep at the club level and see the third bubble screen of the game from the offense and immediately fire off a take. That's 210-660-8259. Save it right now. But try to include like your name or like a pseudonym or something, so like we know how to introduce you. If we're gonna like read it or play it on the podcast, it makes it a lot more engaging. You don't have to give your full government name.
We want to give credit to the hot takes, which there have been some great ones, and so we're having a whole bonus episode where we're gonna read our text messages. We're gonna listen to our voicemail box from the Texas State fallout. It should be really good. We can always be a little more unfiltered behind the curtain, and as far as being raw with what we think about the current state of things. And it's really cool to hear y'all's feedback, because we kind of let you guys be pretty raw with what you guys think about things. And it's really, really fantastic being able to get this many voicemails and text messages. So a big thank you to all who sent in a submission. A big thank you to all Patreons, listeners, subscribers, supporters. A big shout out to our big money donors. That's Ben Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Espedicueta, the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdahl, our host of Around the Birdbath, Jacob Cavazos, former board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Sumner McDaniel, Joe Rodriguez, UTSA grad, 1998, and Home Field Apparel, where you can use the discount code UTSA Wants Home Field and save 15% off of your first purchase. You can also find killer game day and tailgate gear right here at the Alamo Audible Fan Shop. Thank you so very much, and birds up.
All right, thank you guys. We'll see you back next week, and hopefully it's a better tone on this one. We had to go in a little bit, but desperate times calls for desperate measures for sure. We'll see you guys back on episode 278 or on Patreon this week if you're a subscriber.